Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
Welcome to GymCastic. This episode is brought to you by Norbert's. Norbert's Athletic Products has all the things you need for training at home, for training at the gym, for ninja things, anything you could want. And they have specials. And if you go to their website at norberts.net, they have a little specials tab, little picture box on the homepage, and you can see what's on sale, like chalk, little beams, measuring tape, all the stuff you could need. So check it out. And for 10% off your order, go to www.norberts.net and use coupon code GymCastic at checkout. Welcome to Gym Nerd School 102, College Gymnastics from the Institute of GymCastic, the Gymnastics podcast. This is season 21, episode 6, the second installment of Gym Nerd School. Last Gym Nerd School was Gym Nerd School 101, where we talked about elite gymnastics. And welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. Later today, we're going to be joined by a level 10 rated judge and choreographer, Nicole Langevin from Precision Choreography and Camps, and my gym judge. We are wearing, obviously, our special professor outfits.
You know how professors wear a t-shirt with a tie? You know how they do that?
You know how
they don't forget. You know, they definitely don't forget that they're doing this until the very last minute, and then have to run and throw a tie on. That doesn't happen, and it didn't happen in this case, certainly.
Definitely not. And obviously, how professors wear a pencil in their hair, and that is that's
demonstrating academia.
Exactly. Pencils. Mm-hmm. So if you are listening to this, I want to remind you that even if you're not a Club Gym Nerd member, these episodes are available on our YouTube page, and we have some wonderful GIFs and video illustrations. And you guys, we worked quizzes into this episode because you guys really wanted quizzes after last time. So welcome to this educational series. We are going to explain rules, myths, jargon, scandals, legends, how this NCAA code, what is this thing? And we're going to talk about important gym nerd history, all created from your questions. And we're going to be talking about the NCAA specifically. So this is women's artistic gymnastics and the U.S. college system. And we really wanted to do these kind of tortillas.
We wanted to make some tortillas. And then after that, we're going to talk about gymnastics.
We wanted to do these tutorials for fans because there's tons of stuff for coaches and athletes and drills and all. We don't know. This is for fans. What do you want to know as a consumer of the product of gymnastics? We're going to help you shoot it right into your veins.
Yeah.
And
you're sitting there watching gymnastics and being like, why is everyone who talks about this so angry about college gymnastics all the time? Why are you so mad about those scores all the time? Oh, we'll tell you.
So let's start with one of the most important questions that we've had from new college gymnastics watchers. So let's go to our first slide here. The question is, why do the coaches dress crazy? Why the outfits?
I'm glad we're starting with the most important part, but truly it is. Truly it is vital.
So this has nothing to do with, we're not like outfit shaming women. This is just a question that has come up.
We're a little bit outfit shading the concept of the 1980s, though.
We are for sure.
As it deserves to be. So what a wild time it was.
There is a documentary called Sarah and Suzanne. It is about the coaches of the Georgia and Alabama gymnastics team, storied programs. We'll get into much more about them later. Very important in the history of college gymnastics. Apparently, it was going to be a very spicy documentary, but then there was so much threatening of lawsuits back and forth that it's very calm. But you can watch this documentary.
It became mostly about clothes.
So can you tell us about the history of the outfit rivalries that changed gymnastics?
Sure. I mean, it goes into Sarah and Suzanne, who became coaches of Suzanne Yacoulin at Georgia, Sarah Patterson at Alabama in the 1980s, looking at the fact that Utah was the best team and no one else was close, and being like, how do we, get people in the stands, but also win? And part of getting people in the stands was very specifically creating a rivalry against each other and making themselves into the focus of the attention of the team in a lot of ways, and larger than life figures who could have a rivalry against each other and be written about and ensure that, the Alabama fans hate Suzanne. They don't hate the gymnasts on the team because they come and go, but they know that they hate Suzanne, and that fuels a rivalry. And, the clothes part of it's just, what a time it was. But, you've got to make yourself into, like, Suzanne would dress in the heels and the black and, like, leaned into, I want to be the villain for the fans of the teams that aren't Georgia. Like, that was a very
specifically
specific
talked
choice.
about that, not the Southern lady, Southern belle thing that was happening at Alabama, but she is, pictured in one of these moments wearing what I can only describe as a parachute pant suit outfit with a chain and giant leather shoulder puffs, I think is how you describe it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they did the whole make yourself iconic in some way, and part of it was outfits and assuming a persona for the team.
Yeah, having an identity for the team.
And it worked, and it's carried on today. So this is why, and someday we'll change this, but coaches wear heels on floor and ruin all the mats. I don't know why that's not a deduction yet, but when we write the actual NCAA code of points, we will put that in there. All right. So let's go on and talk about, for those people that might be new to this, why do you watch college gymnastics, Spencer?
Yeah, my gravitation toward college gymnastics is based on, first of all, the fact that, unlike one Jessica O'Byrne, my favorite parts of elite competitions are the team finals, which have, in recent years gotten kind of boring because the US is so much better than everyone else. But it's also, rare. It's once a year at Worlds, or it's at the Olympics every 4 years. And once you start following the college gymnastics teams, it's basically like you get an Olympic team final every weekend. And that is something I like, that that same feeling of that team competition that, like, a lot of people, gymnastics fans of my generation, found in the 1996 team final. You can kind of keep that going every weekend. Also, I think I started gravitating more toward college gymnastics in the era of the open-ended code in elite, because it has become the situation in elite where you can have large mistakes on skills and it doesn't matter. Like on beam, you can do your punch front and have a leg flies up horizontally and you're almost falling, and that's okay because everyone has so many deductions in their routines, and you stayed on the beam and you have such a high D score that you're still going to get a high score. Whereas the ability to control your skill, like that, allegedly, that leg up wobble on a punch front takes away your score in college gymnastics. It's not going to be a good score regardless of what else you do in your routine, and the stakes on each individual skill are in that regard higher, not just in terms of not falling, but who's hitting it the best. And I find that very appealing in college gymnastics. What about you?
Okay, so number one, the 10 is alive and well, which is one of my favorite things. Free college tuition. I mean, free. So the average cost of tuition in the United States is about $25,000, or up to $400,000 when you add in the interest from all the loans you have to take out. So I'm a fan of people going to college for free. And like you said, there's rarely blowouts in like there is an elite. Like the competition is so close, and that's one of my favorite things. And I know people complain about high scoring, but it's one of the things that makes it really exciting in NCAA.
You could have excitement without.
No, you can't. Everybody knows it's only a relationship to the 10 is the only thing that people can be excited about. Everybody knows that, Spencer. How dare you?
I believe that we should retain the possibility for getting a 10 in college gymnastics. It should just be rarer, and we should impose a separation so that, like, a normal good score is like a 9.7. And then you have 10ths to work with so that the people who really have earned a 10 can get it. That's the ideal situation.
But nobody wants JO scoring where it goes. Anyway, we'll get more into this. Don't worry, you guys.
I kind of do.
Okay, so I'm talking about my feelings now, Spencer. Please hold back. My God. Okay, So you get to see all of your favorite elites, mostly love and fall in love with gymnastics again and have fun, which is really nice and they're also doing much easier gymnastics for these elites. Also, you get to see the gymnasts be stars and be treated the way they always should be. They're on billboards, they're treated like celebrities. There's 10,000 plus people cheering for them every weekend. And it's nice that your people's career don't have to end. Like they still have this other 4 or sometimes 6 years, depending on how many times they need to have their knees replaced while they're in college, of competing. And so it's not like, their career has to end. And then some people go on after college or after being Olympians into college. There's been 85 Olympians from all over the world competing in the NCAA since the 90s. I'm including alternates in that because now alternates are also Olympians now. So it's one of those awesome things where their careers don't have to end.
We talked about the tens and the fact that still exists on the next slide, which we both enjoy. And there have been getting into our history. There's some 10 history. So last season, in the fake season, in the half season, we had both Maggie Nichols and Kyla Ross chasing the record for most tens ever in NCAA gymnastics. It was gonna be tough anyway, but then the season stopped, so it was definitely not gonna happen for them. So they're still on the list, but Jenny Hansen and Jamie Dancer remain the top. And Jenny Hansen, who is a former Kentucky gymnast and not the head coach of the Minnesota gymnastics team, that is a different Jenny Hansen, who was also a college gymnast, but was not Jenny Hansen when she was competing. Just to,
that might have come up this past weekend.
It might have come up this past weekend. And just to clarify it, those are 2 separate human beings, both named Jenny Hansen. But we've had many, we had Kyla Ross, who was the first, well, we just had her on the show too, the first world, Olympic, and NCAA champion who had the trifecta do college gymnastics, correct, Jessica?
Are we calling it a trifecta? I always thought we could call it the one for the WON, like the World Olympic NCAA. Olympic.
Well, that is very clever there.
Thank you. It's like an EGOT.
Is it going to catch on? Yeah.
I hope so. She's one of the few ones that we've ever had. Kyla Ross.
But isn't she the first ever?
Yeah,
World
she's
Olympic
the first ever.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Of all time. Just happened. Which is amazing. Even though we've had all of these Olympians, but not Olympic champions.
And
because
Bridget
we're the first.
Sloan was world all-around champion and NCAA champion, but
not Olympic.
Not Olympic champion.
She was missing the O.
Close.
Yep.
She had a silver O.
And we've had so many world champions. We've had Taryn Humphrey, Coupets, Ashley Postel, Sacramone, Holly Weiss, Bridget Sloan, like you mentioned, Michaela Skinner, Ivana Hong, Shayla Worley, Sam Peshek, Sabrina Vega, Alyssa Bauman is still competing now, Brenna Dow, Maggie Nichols, so many people. Koshin, that's right. Also, Madison Koshin was the first Olympic gold medalist ever to compete in the NCAA because Kyla Ross let her go first in the lineup. And that was nice because Kyla would go on to win everything. So that was it was a nice moment for her to allow her to do that. And there's tons of 10 still, but I think that one of the best things that we get in NCAA gymnastics is we get the SEC network. The best part of college gymnastics, hands down, besides all the athletes and that stuff, is the SEC network.
The athletes in the trial,
the people that give us feelings. Is the SEC network, which is the best gymnastics coverage on the planet. And it's not the same this year because pandemic and blah blah, but it'll be back to the way it was. It's the coverage that the gymnasts have always deserved, and that mostly that we as fans have always deserved. So, Spencer, can you give us a breakdown of the best things about the SEC network?
If you're watching the video of this, we have the various metrics that the SEC network has developed. My favorite, the handstand protractor, where you can see whether that was actually a vertical handstand or not. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. But we'll talk Kathy mostly will talk you through, if it's within 10 degrees versus what, in real time, what the human eye is going to be capable of seeing in a split position and whether they're hitting. We see the horizontal line so we can know if that back leg is definitely not hitting 180 or is definitely hitting 180. And we can see the height.
They call that the splitometer.
I like it.
Meter. And they have like the colors so you can see like, oh, green is no deduction. Like red is you're going to get a deduction. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Now we just need the NCAA to get itself together on vault to have like actual lines to tell the judges or the people what's happening without an SEC network graphic that the judges aren't seeing.
The vault. I love how when people vault, they have this, just like you do I always talk about this, but like if you've ever watched any of the street sports, like half pipe skating, they have a measurement so you can see on the wall how high does the person go. They just write it on the wall. This is what we need behind vault. But the SEC network puts it in the air for us. So you can see someone's chest height, hip height is 6 feet high off the vault. Oh, it's so amazing. Okay. Number 6. This is where we've incorporated our quizzes, and I have given Spencer a quiz to give me.
Okay, well, I have a question about that. First of all, you wrote a quiz for yourself.
Yes.
Doesn't that assume that you then know all of the answers to this quiz?
Yes, it does. But I might forget them, but you can answer them if you want.
So this is less a test.
Play along at home.
It's an open book. This is an open book quiz for Jessica.
I'll try not to look at the answers. I did study last night, so.
Okay. Jessica wrote a test for herself, and the first question is, how much revenue does the NCAA bring in? Okay, that is not a fair question to ask yourself, because you scream it every week.
This is
Capital
fun.
B with a B, underline, not million, billion.
Spencer, do you want to answer these questions? How are you letting people play along at home if you're immediately giving the answer, not letting me answer? $1 billion. Thank you, Spencer. Ask me the next one.
Why can't elite floor choreography be the same as college?
It can. There's absolutely no reason. There are more, you have to probably do more tumbling, maybe, if you want to get the top D scores in elite, but there is absolutely no reason they can 100% be the same. We even once asked the 2 top US brevet judges for a statement to that question. Why can't, because there was an elite who gave an interview, it was like, oh, you can't do this in elite. And so we gave the quotes to those brevet judges and they said, no, there's no rules against that. Like this gymnast is actually wrong. She could do this exact same routine in elite. There's no reason she couldn't. But I would say tumbling is probably too much tumbling. But it doesn't have to be that way. Netherlands and Belgium. Thank you for proving that. Okay. I'm ready for the next one.
Which organization held women's collegiate championships before the NCAA?
I'm cheating.
3 questions in and she's already cheating.
Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women.
Or the IEAO.
That's it.
As the cool kids call it.
I had to look that up because I know Utah won, but I didn't know, and like Springfield College and stuff and Penn State, but I didn't know who under what. So
yeah. It's the pre-NCAA. So there were women's collegiate gymnastics championships before NCAA finally decided that was a thing.
Exactly.
How much do American athletic departments make in a year? I don't know the answer to this question, Jessica.
I looked this up too. $18 billion a year. The college athletics as a whole, not just gymnastics, is an $18 billion industry. But they can't afford to pay the athletes, Spencer. I don't know if you've heard. Yeah, they can't.
That would be too far.
Right. The workers get zero, but...
Where did the term student athlete come from? Another of your favorite topics.
Spencer, thank you for asking.
Uh-huh.
The term student athlete, which we will not use on this show, and you should never use, and you should judge anyone who does use it after you've explained to them what the origins are. The origin is a lawsuit against the NCAA where a college football player was paralyzed and his parents could not afford the lifelong care that he would need, round-the-clock care to take care of him and keep him alive after he was paralyzed in a football game. And so the president of the NCAA and their lawyers came up with the term student athlete, which meant that you're a student before you're an athlete. And therefore, we are not responsible for paying your medical bills for life, even though we all make a living off of you becoming paralyzed. And that is why it's a terrible term and no one should use it.
Why do Utah and Georgia both claim to be the winningest teams in women's collegiate gymnastics history?
So that's a great question, Spencer. Thank you for asking. The reason is because they have both won 10 college gymnastics championships. Utah won 10, both between the original college gymnastics championships, which is the AIAW, and NCAA, and Georgia has won them just in the NCAA championships. So when they are both correct that they are the winningest co-teams to win, because Utah has won 10 and Georgia has won 10. Georgia's only won in the NCAA. Utah won under both systems, which almost makes them.
What year will athletes be able to profit from their name, image, and likeness?
August 2021 is the time when they're not going to get paid because they're not employees, so the NCAA still says. But it will be this August, coming up, August 2021. And we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. But this is the year everything changes. If you haven't noticed already.
How many scholarships can you have in Division I, Division II, and Division III? And what are the differences between those divisions?
Okay, there's no difference except Division I, the clock starts running on your age when you graduate from high school or turn 18. There's no age limits in the other two. Division I, you can have 12 scholarships, full scholarships. Division II, you can only have 6 scholarships, but you can divide them up however you want. So you could have 2 people having a full scholarship, and then the rest of the team, as long as it doesn't go over the 6 scholarship limit, having like a half a scholarship, and you get a quarter of a scholarship. Here, buy some books. And Division III has no scholarships. Very proud of myself. That was numbers, and I remembered.
Very good. Yes. Next question. How many years after its inception did it take the NCAA to hold women's gymnastics championships?
So the NCAA started in 1906. And they the first women's gymnastics championships was 82. So I think that's 76 years. Is that right? 76 years later.
Very good job. Very good math.
Thank you. 76 years. A short 76 years. It's fine. Everything's equal and fine, and we should just calm down about it.
How many teams have won the women's NCAA gymnastics championship, and can you name them? This I'm not going to let you look. This I'm not going to let you cheat.
6, right? 6.
6, yeah.
So Utah.
You can definitely do this.
Okay, Utah. Then Georgia.
Yeah.
Then Alabama.
Yeah.
Then UCLA.
Yeah.
Then Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Then Oklahoma.
Yep. Easy peasy.
Amazing.
That's the end of the quiz. That's all the questions you wrote for yourself. You got 100% on your own quiz. And you only had to cheat like once.
Okay, let's go to number 7, the Dynasties. Spencer, please tell us about the history of these amazing rivalries and what happened.
A historical timeline of college gymnastics. So in the beginning, there was Utah. And basically only Utah. For a number of years in the 1980s, early to mid 1980s, Utah was Utah and everyone else was bad. And Utah was going to win, and that was the end of it. And then Sarah and Suzanne were like, hey, look at what Greg Marston has done at Utah. Maybe we can have a good team too, and also a whole lot of scandals alongside it. And so in the mid to late 80s, Georgia and Alabama started to emerge as powerhouses in college gymnastics. Georgia won its first title in 87, Alabama in 88. And throughout the 1990s, it was basically those three teams. Utah won the majority or the most titles in the 1990s of any of those teams. UCLA won its first title in 1987, but then it was the Sydney Elite dynasty that introduced UCLA as really the fourth powerhouse in college gymnastics. Those elites from the 97 to 2000 quad, so many of them came to UCLA, and they started winning nearly every year in the early 2000s. Alabama won in 2002, but other than that, it was every year UCLA. And then Suzanne was like, I would like a couple of Courtneys, please. And in Suzanne Yakelin's last 5 years at Georgia, Georgia won consecutive NCAA titles in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. And then after that, we kind of had like a grab bag. UCLA would win a year, Alabama would win a year, and then it gave rise to, on the subsequent slide, we get to see the Usurpers, who are Florida. And I really like Jessica's Game of Thrones verbiage here, the Dynasties and the Usurpers. This is excellent. Florida came along, Oklahoma came along, and they started winning. And Oklahoma has won most of the recent NCAA championships. UCLA won in 2018, but 3 of the last 4 times there's been a championship, it has been won by Oklahoma. And that's our championship timeline in college gymnastics, which I do feel is the best gateway drug for new gymnastics fans if you're trying to get someone into gymnastics, because there's so much to make fun of. And that is fun for people who aren't that into gymnastics yet. They're like, oh my God, I'm beyond what are these leotards? What is this hair? What are these outfits? There's so much. But also, it does not require the excessive code knowledge to understand why scores are what they are, or who's better than someone else that Elite does. You can kind of be like, all right, yeah, she stepped on that landing. I see that. And the judges are like, yeah, that's all I'm going to take. And you're
College
like,
gymnastics, a gateway drug.
I
Love it. It really is. So let's go to number 9, judging. So I want to just talk about, there's a lot of confusion about what the NCAA is judged upon. So
especially from us.
Yes. So there are many kind of college gymnastics competitions. NCAA is not the only one. So there's USA Gymnastics Championships, and then there's the NAIGC, and there's like lots of different systems. The NCAA is just a club that made some rules, and they got the most people on board, and they're very old, and they started as an old boys club. And then Title IX passed, which was like, you have to give equal opportunity. And so now we have lawsuits. It's not enforced at all. You just have to threaten to sue people in order to get a team and get equal opportunity for women.
Or keep your team if they try to get rid of it.
Exactly. You're like, oh, you're going to get rid of us? You actually have 40% women at this institution, but you only provide 10% of sporting opportunities and scholarships for them. So we'll sue your ass or you reinstate us. Oh, and Marion Joseph, athletic director, please step down now with all these lawsuits. That was her, right? Who got fired?
Marion Joseph?
Marion Joseph, what is it?
William and Mary?
It's some Catholic thing. Can't keep up with all the names of the Catholic people.
Not a Catholic thing.
Whoa, what is it then?
Joseph? It's an Anglican thing.
Oh, okay. Anyway, whatever. It's the name of 2 people's school. So, anyway, you guys, can we stick to the judging?
Specifically not Catholic.
Okay. That's good to know. I didn't know that. So thank you for correcting me. So judging. Let's go to this. So so what happens is USA Gymnastics puts out the Junior Olympic Code of Points. This is for and we're looking at level 10 specifically, which is the highest level before you get to elite. It's now called USAG development level, but we've decided it should be called Diva level, which is way more fun than US development. No one wants to be in development, especially in puberty. So You're 12. I'm in the development program. So anywho, they get out their code level 10 rules. Then the Women's College Gymnastics Association, which is a bunch of college coaches, they're in a bunch of different committees. They get together, they vote on rule changes. They propose the rule changes to the NCAA, and then the NCAA judging committee makes the final rules modifications. So in order to understand the college judging, just read the balance beam situation, has all the breakdowns, and it's much, much easier. Or you would actually have to get the code of points, the general code of points, and then also get the NCAA Women's Gymnastics Rules Modifications document and meet procedures.
It's one of my favorite books. I have it saved on my desktop.
It's very short, though, which is very nice. It's nothing like the code of points, which is like,
No.
oh my God, insane. Okay, so also, I just want to remind everyone that NCAA doesn't like make laws. They're not a government agency. It's just a club you can join. So, you know, some schools leave and will go to some other organization. But for our purposes, we're going to talk about the NCAA. So that is how the rules are made. Now you know. And then let's go to the start values and how you get to a 10. Let's go to number 10.
Oh, this is a quiz that you've written for me.
Oh, just kidding. I have a quiz for you first before we get to that. Okay, so remember, you can play along at home.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
All right. So, quiz for Spencer. How many hours a week can gymnasts work out under the NCAA rules?
Oh, so it's like a joke. The first question is like a joke question.
Right.
Technically 20. But that doesn't include a lot of other stuff that you can make your team members do, like meetings.
That was the next question. Does this include meetings, fundraisers, marketing, medical treatment, travel in that 20 hours?
No. The 20 hours a week is a cute guideline. And then you can make sure that there's a lot more if you're worried about, like, you know, that your gymnasts aren't training enough. But it's worth looking for USAG to look into this.
I agree, actually.
An hours a week, you know, requirement for an hours a week limit for various levels, which obviously all the coaches are going to find workarounds exactly the way they do in NCAA. We know that they're going to abuse the system, but you could have maybe something in place. But anyway, yes.
One of the ways the system is abused is that coach will be like, okay, here's your 4 hours of gymnastics practice, but now we have a meeting afterwards, and then you have to do all of your conditioning and strength all on your own. You have to find time for that. So it ends up being, 6 to 8 hours, and then if you have to travel, whatever. No one is committing just 20 hours a week to being a athlete in college. What year did the NCAA decide women had been invented?
Our first NCAA women's competition in gymnastics was 1982. That was the first national championship because that's when women started.
Does the NCAA make laws?
Like national laws?
Yes.
They have enough lobbying power to do so. Yes, they can make laws, not officially.
So many people are like, it's against the law to recruit a 12-year-old. And we're like, what law? They're not laws.
The NCAA has enough political power. They can be like, ring-a-ding-ding, Senator. We have some thoughts.
Oh, they actually have done that. Mark Emmert called the California governor and before he signed the bill to make it illegal not to let athletes profit from their name and likeness and image in California, which then trickled down to all the other states. And then finally the NCAA, and tried to convince him not to do it and not to sign the bill. So, okay, what is the start value for a floor, beam, and bars in NCAA?
If you fulfill all of your composition requirements and have enough skills, your routine is going to start from a 9.4, and then you try to come up now a 9.4. It used to be a 9.5 until a couple of years ago, and now you try to get 0.6 of bonus through skill bonus and combination value to get up to a 10.0 start.
What are vaults worth? Which vaults are worth a 10 in NCAA?
There are a number of 10s, no longer Yurchenko full or Yurchenko layout half, but a Yurchenko 1.5 layout and above. Also, a Yurchenko tucked 1.5 starts from a 10. Handspring pike half is a 10-0 start. Any Omelyanchik round off half on front pike 10-0 start. So there are quite a few.
How do you get to a 10 with, can you give us some examples of bonus and connection value that would get you from that 9-4 to a 10?
I would love to. So if you're at your 9-4, skill bonus, you get 1/10 of bonus for every D skill that you perform. You get 2/10 of bonus for every E skill that you perform. Many of them are the same values as in Elite, but not exclusively. For instance, on bars dismounts in college, the double layout and a full twisting double tuck are E skills in college, but they're D skills in the Elite code of points. And then there are, as in Elite, a number of different combination bonus. C plus C is 0.2 or A plus D is 0.1, and a number of different ones on each event to get you up to your 10-0 star value. You have to have at least 1/10 of bonus from combination and at least 1/10 of bonus from skills to get to a 10. You can't load up on all one or all the other.
Thank you, Spencer. Okay, so who pays for scholarships?
The athletic departments, the boosters.
Is it government? Is it like, do my tax dollars?
Oh, this is what you're asking? Like, do your tax dollars pay for the scholarships? No.
So it's basically fans.
Yeah. Was there a specific intent behind this question? Like, you're upset about where your money is going?
This question comes up like once a year. Someone will be upset that they see like there's a gymnast from Chile on this team. Like, why are my tax dollars paying for this person's education? And every year we have to remind people.
Tell us what you feel about that, Jessica.
That's stupid, and it benefits everybody. The more international, the more variety, the more diversity in the kind of people you have around you with different kind of life experiences and a different way of seeing the world only enriches your educational experience, and it's incredibly valuable to have, especially international students on your team. Yeah, it's not no tax money is paying for someone's scholarship. It's just fans like or rich boosters who want to give all their money away so they don't have to pay as many taxes. But not tax related. Okay. So is it true that scores rise? So the first person up is always the lowest score and the last person up is always the highest.
It's not always the case, but it can. We've certainly seen some lineup order scoring in college gymnastics. Among the problems that we have with college gymnastics judging, it shouldn't. If everyone in your lineup is starting from a 10, their score should just be based on how they perform. But it doesn't, in practice, tend to work like that.
You did a study of scores at NCAA championships, right?
That was for sessions. Yes, you like to invent a couple studies that I did that I've never done, but I'll take credit for them. Yeah, basically there was a time where like a lot of coaches were giving interviews about how like, well, it's harder to be in the first semifinal at NCAAs rather than the afternoon semifinal because you won't make as many event finals or whatever. And so I was like, well, I don't think that's true. And it turns out that's not consistently true. It depends on the year. It depends on what quality of teams end up in the first session. There have been plenty of years where the scores are cumulatively higher in the first session because the better teams were there and they got higher scores. So it's not a thing.
And that just shows that data is important. And this is why we should not go by myths and legends, but look at the actual numbers like Spencer does at thebalancebeamsituation.com. So can the first person up get a 10 or is that impossible?
It is now possible because it has happened one time. Grace Glenn last season for UCLA, first up on beam, got a 10. It doesn't tend to happen because for like sort of a couple reasons that reinforce each other. One is that judges tend to be slightly more conservative for the first person, though not exclusively, and don't want to give out a 10 because then what if someone better comes up later in the lineup, and then what are you going to do for that person's score? But then that is sort of the assumption from everyone in college gymnastics that that's what's going to happen. So then teams don't tend to put the person who could actually get a 10 in the first position because they're like, well, they're not going to get a 10 because they're going up first. So we're not going to put someone who even has the quality of routine to get a 10 up first. So then it doesn't happen. An exception to that was when Grace Glenn led off for UCLA for a couple seasons. And then in 2020 got a 10 first up. So it has happened exactly one time. But mostly you're not seeing gymnasts who are going to get a 10 going first.
Yeah. And some people, it's just like they want to put the best person up who will start the team off on like an even scale and like make sure that, you don't want someone who's like likely to fall off or, whatever, go first. You want someone who's like very even keeled and keeps all the team confident, like starts everyone off on the sacrificial lamb. We call that person.
My least favorite thing in college gymnastics is when a team will have like a couple beam falls a couple weeks in a row and then reorganize their beam lineup to have their best person go first to like steady the team or whatever. Because I'm like, well, basically you've just undermined your scoring potential when you actually get to nationals. Like it would have been better to just like, you don't have to count most of these meets. Just like work through your problem with the lineup that you wanted. So then you can actually have your best organized lineup at nationals rather than panicking and like putting Anna Lee or Elise Hoffner-Hibbs first up on beam. Yeah, I'm not over it. Or Aisha Gerber.
I'll never forgive. Never forgive.
We'll never forgive. First up on beam because like you fell against Southern Utah and got a 194 and now you're worried about it.
Okay, what is lineup racism?
Oh, yes. Lineup racism is when coach puts the black gymnasts earlier in the lineup so that even though they're better than the white gymnasts who are going after them, so that they bump up the scores for the white gymnasts. Is that a solid summary?
Yeah, that was
of what lineup racism is. Yeah.
Why does everyone have to wear a leotard?
They don't, Jessica. This is a Jessica question. You don't.
No, this is literally a question from Twitter. I did not. Half of these are from Twitter. Thank you very much. Not just my personal agenda.
You don't.
Yeah. There's a rule that the whole team has to wear the same thing. But no, everybody could wear a unitard or shorts leotard. The same thing the guys wear, a singlet. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Okay. Let us move on to number 11. How to win, I think, is the next thing. Spencer, can you describe to people how you win, both as a team and an individual?
Okay. The thing about winning in college gymnastics is that for almost the entirety of the season, it doesn't matter. So you can lose every single regular season competition and still win the national championship because it's a sport that makes sense. And that's really compelling for general sports fans. What a strong format. By the time your ranking is based on your scores. So it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It's based on your scores. And then after conference championships at the end of the season, which are in March, then the top 36 teams currently is the current format will advance to the elimination rounds, starting with the regional championships. So they go to 4 separate regional sites. 9 teams go to each site. There will be a much maligned play-in meet between a dual meet between the 2 lowest ranked teams in each regional group to see
high
who
stakes. High stakes. It's very exciting.
It is high stakes. I find it entertaining.
I love it.
It's just much maligned and probably is going to go away kind of soon. So then we have 8. After that, you have 8 teams in each regional session, and they compete in 2 quad meets. The top 2 teams in each competition advance the next day. So we have 16 teams left at that point. They compete in 4 quad meets, and then the top 2 teams in each of those are still alive. So now we're down to 8 teams. They go to the national championship a couple weeks later. 2 semifinals of 4 teams, top 2 in each one advance to the final of 4 teams, which is terribly called 4 on the floor, and we don't recognize that because it's inappropriate.
Stupid.
And then the winner among those 4 teams on the last day is the winner. And we used to have event finals for individuals in college gymnastics. We no longer have those. So all around and individual event titles are based on performances in the national semifinal when there are 8 teams, and also a series of individuals who have been able to advance to the postseason or out of their regional group based on their individual scores will also go and compete. So they do have a chance to win individual titles.
It used to be more exciting because we had event finals day and everybody would try stuff that they didn't do in their normal routines because they couldn't be risky for the team. But now nobody does that, and it's super boring.
And event finals I hated because they had a terrible format and they were really boring and long. But rather than fix the format, they just got rid of them.
Right, which is stupid. They should have fixed the format.
So that 27 people were advancing to the vault final.
Yes.
Remember
that time when there were like 27 people and then one person like vaulted like sideways off the table? Do you remember that? She did like a cartwheel.
I do remember, because you suddenly had to do 2 vaults then. And people didn't do 2 vaults the entire season and didn't train them, and then would go out there and be like, woohoo, I'm going to try 2 vaults. And sometimes it was funny and sometimes it was scary.
Right. Watching warm-ups was terrifying because people would be like, I think I'll try an Almanar on this hard mat for the first time in years.
Yeah, I haven't done a Yurchenko 1.5 since I was 14, and I'm going to try it right now because I'm a senior and this is my last day of gymnastics and I don't even care anymore.
Break all the legs. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's go to number 12. We had a question, and the question was, I just got into college gymnastics. How do I pick my favorite team?
Excellent.
This is such a great question.
Yes.
So my first suggestion is that you could just pick your favorite athlete and then follow the team that they're on. Like you could do that. You could also, some people follow, I don't understand this, but apparently it's a thing. Okay. Some people follow teams based on geography. So like,
goodness gracious.
If they're from Philadelphia and so they have Temple is the gymnastics team that's closest to their house. That's who they
mean they want to follow a team where they could go to the competitions and watch them in person? That's weird. Right. I don't believe in that. I only believe in watching gymnastics on my computer.
So those are some options, but we have created a system for you to decide.
I like the system.
Yes. So my system is by, we have categories. So my category is choreography, and you should watch a few teams and see whose choreography you like the best and who are the best performers and then follow them. So I suggest UCLA, Oklahoma, Sac State, and Alaska. Those are
no longer a team, we think, allegedly.
Excuse me. They only need to raise like $30,000 more. They're almost there. They've almost raised like 800,000 was their goal, and they're more than halfway there. They're going to be fine. There's a German in charge. Like this isn't going to be a problem. She made a plan. They're getting it done. It's going to be fine.
Oh, good.
Go ahead. What's your category?
There are other categories. We're sort of giving a overview of what teams are known for. So if you're like, that's the thing that clicks with me. There are teams who are, maybe less focused on learning life lessons and are more focused on winning you in the face, which used to be Georgia. Very much what Georgia was known for, beating you in the face with gymnastics. Now I would say like it's Oklahoma is the like winning you in the face team. Like if you're like, I want the team that's just like, shut up, I'm going to win a meet. I would say now that's Oklahoma, but they also have the choreography going. The KJ's choreography reputation. So there's, they hit a couple categories, which is why Oklahoma has experienced a very familiar sporting rise where they were the plucky underdog with like great beam form and beautiful choreography. And everyone was like, all I want in the whole world is for Oklahoma to become one of the best teams and for them to win. And it's going to be great. And then Oklahoma started winning. And now they're like suddenly like in the last 2 years, like the most loathed team on the gym internet, which I find as a hilarious phenomenon. Hilarious, which is, it's true. but like so are all of the top 10 teams. Like I watched LSU this weekend, I watched Utah this weekend, I watched Oklahoma this weekend. I was like, yep, yeah, they're all too high, all of them. But yeah, so it's like, it's a fascinating trajectory. And then Florida had that for a while. Like everyone was so mad at Florida. And then Bridgie Kakwata was getting 995s in the anchor position, and it was not fair. And then Rhonda left. And now Jenny Rowland is there, and they did a pride meet. And now everyone's like, Florida's my favorite underdog. So these things change, is what I'm saying.
If you love difficulty, you might like Oklahoma, Utah, Florida. We did have a question. Do you think that difficulty has gone down since like the late 2000s, since the Elise Ray, Krista Maloney, the double layout fulls eras?
As a whole, I don't think difficulty has gone down. I mean, there are areas where you can see difficulty has gone up. Like we're seeing far more people do Yurchenko double fulls on vault than we saw ever before when the Yurchenko full was a 10-0 start, because why would you? Yeah, I haven't thought that difficulty is going down. I do think I've noticed like last year or so, we see fewer double back dismounts on beam. Like a couple people will do it, but I think fewer than we had. We had a patch where that was like the cool thing to do, and now fewer. What do you think about that?
I kind of think it has, and I think it has to do with once you're established, you don't have to risk as much. You don't have to make a name for yourself. Also depends on your recruiting class. If a double front is the easiest thing for your athlete to do, it's super impressive, but it's like for them, they've been doing it since they were 10, and can do it every weekend, then it's no biggie. I kind of I think people aren't probably pushing it this year because like you don't want to end up in the hospital, because
this year is a little different. There are so many two-pass floor routines this year. I'm getting kind of sick of them. Yeah, I feel like we might need to change the rules to make it a little harder for you to be allowed to do a 2-pass floor routine. Like you have to do a little more difficulty if it's going to be 2 passes.
I'm totally fine with it. I love all the dance.
I'm fine with doing 2, but like I feel like you need to have an E tumbling element on one of your passes if you're going to do a 2-pass routine.
I'm okay with that.
Something like you can do like, it's not, there's not enough tumbling requirement to do 2 passes. You need to like show some things, not just like a back 1.5 to layout.
The front, everyone doing the same front pass is freaking killing me. Like someone put up Kat Grable's. Remember when she did, what did she do? 1.5
double Arabian half out.
Well, yeah, she did that too. But when she did a 1.5 punch front full, punch Branny step out, but it's so high. It looks like, she turns it and arches it, and it's just so beautiful. Like this is why we need like the real JO code deductions. Like if your layouts all stay at the same level and don't rise, that should be a deduction on each one of those. And so they're not all getting the same scores. But anyway.
We have a problem with floor scoring is the layout out of the front full or out of the back 1.5. And like you land it to your feet and they're not taking deductions. And I'm like, no, it was sideways. She performed it under the floor. There was so little amplitude.
She landed in such a deep squat that the leg hairs on the back of her thighs touch the ground, and you're not taking a deduction. Okay, if you love, coming back to how to pick your favorite team. If you love social justice, what teams do you recommend?
Iowa has cornered the market on that. Very, good morally, also savvy. Both of those things at the same time. I think it's clearly important for teams to have identities when they are trying to emerge as a top program. The top programs all have a very specific identity. Like we talked about Georgia being like, winning. And UCLA was like, choreography, art, like established, like Miss Val very much established that, reputation as the choreography one, the artistry one, the pretty one, the elite one. We're going to carry ourselves like ballerinas. And that was a UCLA identity. And Iowa's like, there's an opening for just like the most social justice-y team. And we're going to be that because that's who we are.
I forgot to add a category. If you love out LGBT gymnasts, we have
there are many
lesbians and bisexual gymnasts now in the NCAA. So we have Georgia, MSU has a gymnast who was on the team last year, and now she's a coach.
Mhm.
Florida, out gymnast competing. UCLA, out by gymnast competing. Pitt, out by gymnast competing. Did I forget any lesbians?
I feel like we are forgetting some because there are so many now.
I know. They're everywhere. It's almost like 30% of the population was always this, and they were always there.
But no team has really cornered the market yet. You'll have like athletes here and there, and I feel like a savvy team is going to be like a Pied Piper situation,
all the lesbians,
and just be like, let's recruit all the lesbians, and we're going to be the lesbian team, and the lesbians and bisexuals team, and trans, hopefully.
Yeah, there are definitely trans gymnasts. They're just not out. Like, we've had their parents email us, like, they exist.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You don't know who trans is either, because you wouldn't know just from looking at them. How about that? Okay, if you love beautiful form, if like high releve, pointed toes, straight legs, extension, who do you recommend?
Lexi Rambler. End of list.
So Minnesota.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say Denver, generally.
Yeah. If they're not all out, like they were not able to compete like last weekend.
If the whole team doesn't have COVID tracing protocol quarantine.
COVID tracing.
If you love if you love an underdog, who would you say to root for?
I would say, like, if you're like, I want to root for the team that never has gotten its due, but is really good and could get there, I would say Michigan is your solid choice. Of like, also, if they haven't been shut down for COVID, if you're like, I don't want to root for like a team that's won before because that's too obvious, which I understand. Like, I would say Michigan's a solid choice. Also, on the topic of teams that have come so close and never won, LSU very famously always finishes second.
Pretty much. I would recommend, if you're interested in following gymnasts who are most likely to be future tech billionaires or find a cure for cancer or are just incredibly, incredibly smart, Stanford or Cal. You might enjoy Yale as well. Follow their gymnastics. If you love Canadians, you want to find the Canadians, follow all the teams.
Yeah, is there someone who's, I would say like,
who has the most
effective Canadian-Australian pipeline is probably Oregon State. Like, if you're really into Australians, I would gravitate toward Oregon State. They have a very nice Australian pipeline.
The English are everywhere now too.
The English are everywhere. I know.
It's so great. If you love Latin American gymnasts or Spanish speakers, Denver is
or
totally
Iowa
the
State.
team for you.
Yeah.
Or Iowa's, yep. Which I love too.
This episode is brought to you by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit that sends you pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes right to your door. Jessica and I both use HelloFresh, and we've been talking about Green Chef lately too. HelloFresh now owns Green Chef, so we get like double the options for meals, and we're not complaining about it. It's totally fine. HelloFresh has so many options for eating healthy and different subscriptions. There are low-cal meals, carb-smart meals, vegetarian, pescatarian, which I was seriously considering fake signing up for because my sister doesn't eat fish as a prank, but I'm not that mean, but I really wanted to. And also all sorts of different easy eats offerings, like 10 to 20 minute meals and low prep recipes. That's something I really enjoy. If you look at the recipes, they'll say like, lightning prep or one pan or something, which I enjoy, because then if I'm like, okay, there's a Utah-Washington meet at 6 p.m. and I'm going to want to eat before it. Otherwise, I'm going to be even more upset about judging than usual. But I know afterward, I'm going to be too tired and probably cranky, and I'm not going to want to do any cleanup. So I should pick a one-pan meal so I'll know that. Because otherwise, like, if it's a lot of pans, I'm probably leaving that for the next day, which is irresponsible, Jessica, and you shouldn't do it. No. But I know that one pan, I can manage that even after watching a Utah meet. So it's perfect. Tell the people, Jessica, how they too can be part of HelloFresh.
So go to hellofresh.com/10 GymCastic and use code 10GymCastic for 10 free meals. That includes free shipping. So go to hellofresh.com/10 GymCastic and use code 10 GymCastic for 10 free meals. Thanks, HelloFresh. This show is also brought to you by Club Gym Nerd. Club Gym Nerd is the way of contributing to this show and helping us pay all the many, many bills, including the gigantic hotel and travel bill we are going to have for the Olympics, which I am terrified because it is coming up soon, and helping us do this every week. And if you're a Club Gym Nerd member, you can get to watch videos of behind the scenes of what we were doing when we were recording. And we have a Q&A podcast every Friday just for our Club Gym Nerd members. So if you want to check it out, gymcastic.com, the Join the Club tab. Thanks to our members.
I'm Marcy Hamilton, CEO of Child USA, and our Game Over Commission is investigating the factors that led to the sexual abuse of hundreds of gymnasts. If you are a survivor of abuse by Larry Nassar or a family member of a survivor, we would like to encourage you to take an anonymous survey. You can find it at childusa.org/gameover. Please help us end child sex abuse in sports.
Okay. So now you know how to pick. We made it super easy for you. So no problem. Just pick your category and now you know who to follow. Number 13. The sexy things.
Jessica's favorite gifts. The category.
So the great thing about NCAA is because it uses the JO code points and not the FIG code of points, there are skills that are named for gymnasts that you will never see in elite because you're not allowed to do them. Or if you did, you would get no credit for them. So there's some you're not allowed to do at all. So one of my favorites is the Cavisto, which is the straddle the beam, do a flip from your hands back over to your crotch skill. It's a flip from crotch to crotch. It is a crotch Jaeger. She went to Utah, so we got to see it at NCAA. One of the vaults that we get to see, instead of your Chenko entry, we see a front handspring entry. There's quite a few gymnasts that do this. Front handspring onto the board, not onto the horse, onto the board front handspring. And
then a handspring vault into a front pike. And that's starts from a 10. We saw a gymnast for Towson just like today. The Towson posted the video of a front handspring onto the springboard souk tuck fall.
Yep. It's pretty cool. You look at it and you're like, what happened there?
You have to watch it a couple times to be like, what direction are you in?
How? We also have lots of front chicken dump variations. I don't remember how we came up with front chicken dump, but it's a kick over front is we call it front.
That was a combination of many different things because we were laughing about how I think it's Woga specific. It may be Woga specific, but there are former Woga gymnasts who do commentary who call a kick over front a chicken flip. And we were talking about that. And then we were talking about calling it a kick over front or front toss, some people will call it. And then Uncle Tim said he knew someone who called it a front dump. And we laughed about that for a while because dump. And then we combined all of them and started calling it a front chicken dump.
It's the best name for it. Everyone should call it that. But so we have some of those to scale, which is like Nastia used to do that. And then they took it out of the elite code because they were like, no, you can't just be adding scales to everything and naming it after yourself. And then we have the skills to one knee, which I love.
Yeah. To and from one knee. You can do like Soraya Hawthorne at Georgia does kick over from a knee. Cassie Stevens at Auburn goes to a knee. My favorite was Megan Ferguson ending her layout, step out series on beam years ago in a knee. It was just a different look. It was cool.
Megan Ferguson. I could watch her beam all day long. Yeah. Stop it. And then there are things that used to be in the elite code and then they took out because they hate the unified team.
They hate joy and they hate creativity.
So the split leg double layout, which we last famously saw on 1992 Olympic champion.
I thought you were going to say on Caitlin Ohashi. On 1992 Olympic champion Caitlin Ohashi. We've fully tried to decided to rewrite the history of 1992, and I'm fine with that. Caitlin Ohashi won the Olympic all-around title. Don't worry about it.
1992, and then fast forward to 2018. 2019, whenever she did that, her floor routine, that whichever one went viral, and she did the split leg double layout, and we I can't think of another time I've seen a split leg double layout since, except like people doing it for fun, like in an actual floor routine.
Yeah. Because you
So,
can't do it in an elite anymore. You
right.
just get a leg separation deduction.
So it's one of the best things about college gymnastics is like there's more creativity allowed than there is in elite. Like hands down for sure, end of story. There's more actual skill creativity allowed. Dance creativity is totally allowed in FIG. People just don't do it. They do it rarely. But skill creativity is encouraged, I would say. All right. Number 14. Scandals and legends.
Ooh, okay. Sure. Let's go.
All the tea. Okay, so there's so many scandals and legends, you guys.
So many that we don't know. Like you were talking about the Sarah and Suzanne documentary and how much wasn't in that.
I know.
Like these are history. This is the oral history we need.
Exactly. Speaking of Suzanne, though, let's start with that one. All the teams have some scandal. Don't think that they don't. You just have to Google it. So Suzanne. So Georgia lost a scholarship, just one scholarship, because they violated the NCAA rule of like giving gifts for success that have monetary value. So the team won, and whatever year they won, and then the coach's boyfriend flew the team like in his private jet to New York City for the weekend or for a night to like see some Broadway shows and then flew them back. And that's against the rules. And so they lost a scholarship.
Worth it.
Totally worth it. I was like,
Totally
one scholarship, who cares? And it was only for 1 year. It wasn't like for 10 years you lose a scholarship. So, I mean, I would totally go to Georgia. It's only a weekend, though. I feel like I would want.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to lose a scholarship, I want a full week.
I would want like a shopping spree, a nose job, like a car.
You should have to fly Svetlana Horkina out to go on a shopping spree. Like a shopping spree through Europe with Svetlana Horkina.
Yes.
That's like the rider we need for like losing a scholarship.
Right. And there should be diamonds on your seat in the, when you sit on the plane.
I mean, Suzanne has enough heel diamonds. Like her heel diamond budget is immense. So why can't there be diamonds on the seats too?
Okay, so let's see. Greg Marsden at Utah, one time his team threw him out of practice because he had a bad attitude. Of course, if smart coaches turn these things into recruiting marketing, they call their local sports reporter and like, hey, guess what happened to me today? My team threw me out because the women on this team are empowered. Do you want to write a story about it? And that's how PR works, everybody. Talk about the billboard.
Oh, that's my favorite. It's my favorite Marsden story because I think sometimes we think about like, well, Sarah Suzanne, larger than life personalities, and Greg Marsden is just like too normal of a human. But he got like, he had his fair share of scandals, like the billboard. So there was a advertisement for the team, Amy Trepanier, on a billboard doing a pose from her floor routine. That was a scandal, and it was very much in trouble. I'm not sure was it like people thinking this was vulgar or this was like exploitative of women.
Sexy.
Yeah.
To be a sports, because she's in like in a black leotard and it's just the back of her, and her Leo was very high cut, so it was a lot of booty. Like you wouldn't have known that was a sports team billboard, I think, just looking at it.
So, as times change, because now, and full endorsement, Oklahoma's advertising for this season is just foreplay as pictures. And just like, let's be honest, that's what it is. And everyone's fine with it, including us. I'm fine with it. But times change.
Yep.
So that was that they got in trouble for that and they had to take it down. And then later they put up a billboard of Marsden. This was advertising something else, like some sort of festival, in like doing the same pose, but in like a tutu. And that also got in trouble for various reasons. And they had to take that one down too or something. It was great. It's one of my favorite stories.
Speaking of this, we did have a question about leotards, and like someone was like, I don't mean to be crude, but like, why don't people wear leotards that fit? Like, I don't understand. Is it that this is the style that women of this age wear now, or is it that the coaches aren't buying leotards that fit? And the answer to that is yes.
Yes, it's both.
It's both of those things. So let's see. Oh, UCLA. Okay. So
Where do we start?
Where do we start? So when Miss Val was there, she was investigated for getting 2 fake athletes onto teams. So one was a family member who was not a gymnast and is alleged to have created a fake profile kind of to get onto the gymnastics team and actually like take pictures with the team, and then was actually not a gymnast and, you know, became a manager. And then the other was a favor for the former head coach who had hired Miss Val, was to get his son in onto a team. So basically he said he was like a golfer and then ended up, you know, really just never worked out with the team and was turned into a gymnastics team manager. So those are the allegations against that team. Former Nebraska coach was alleged to have been charging athletes for floor choreography. So basically, when you go to college, everything's supposed to be paid for. You're not supposed to be like, can you construct a bar routine for me? And the coach isn't supposed to be like, that'll be $600. Everything's included. Basically, it's like going to a buffet on a cruise ship is how it's supposed to work in college. So the allegation was that the coaches said, okay, your floor choreography costs this much money. So every floor routine you get every year, you have to pay off the cost of your choreography by working summer camps. And so that coach is no longer there. So Shannon Miller's coach, Steve Nuno, he went on to be a college coach, and he was allegedly fired for violating rules regarding the number of hours the athletes could work out. Shocker. That's a big shocker. Who knew that could happen? There is a current Missouri coach who allegedly took a gymnast out of lineups and suspended her for reporting that another gymnast had stolen from her. And there was, I mean, it wasn't an allegation, like it was proven true. There's a criminal record. She was cited for it. But the gymnast who was, you know, whistle blew on the gymnast who had stolen from her was taken out of lineups and then, you know, eventually I think taken off the team. Whereas the person who was the thief stayed on the team and was in the lineups, and there's basically no punishment, is that story.
Basically, we need a full like NCAA gymnastics scandals episode.
Oh my god,
I feel like we're scratching the surface.
There's 2 schools that are alleged to have encouraged the gymnast to both coaches have been fired, sets of coaches, to have encouraged the gymnast to go get Adderall so that they could lose weight and, you know, get through a season. So just here are the things to say so you can get some Adderall.
Yeah.
There's so many other scandals, but
yeah, there are a lot of like, there's so much in the rumors category that I'm like, how much do we really know?
I mean, this is why everything I've said has been an allegation. All of these. Yes. I mean,
there were lots of alleged things happening at Arizona State there for a couple of years that Jessica texted me wondering about pictorial evidence.
Yeah.
Have you saved the screenshots of that Instagram account?
I tried to find that Instagram account today and I could not. It's all private now. And I didn't save the screenshots. But if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Real drag.
Send those. Yeah. So many more. That should be a commissioned episode, just scandals of, because then there's like gymnasts that have had everything happen to her. Like one is like, you know, walked out of us. She says she walked out of the store with sunglasses on her head. She was arrested for shoplifting. Someone else, it's like they
got kicked off a team and then went to a better team. That happens a lot. And then wins championships. Like, oops, I got kicked off this team for showing up to practice drunk, and then I went to a better team. Bye.
And also, like, if people transfer, people leave, like, it's fine. You find a place that works for you. It's not scandalous. Like, unless that team was
transferring is not
horrible.
Scandalous unless you transfer because of a scandal. Sometimes that's true, and it's great.
There was a gymnast who had a terrible boyfriend, and he was apparently storing weapons at her house, and so she got arrested and kicked off the team. All the things you can imagine have happened on all the teams. I would like to now introduce Nicole Langevin, who is here from My Gym Judge and Precision Choreography. And Nicole is a level 10 rated judge. She's not an NCAA rated judge. And you might ask, what are you doing, Jessica? She can't judge NCAA. What's wrong with you? But stick with me for a minute because there's a method to my madness. So there has often been, and you've heard us bring it up on the show before, a call for there to be an actual NCAA code of points instead of just a JO code of points that is then modified by a committee who then comes out with a different set of rules for the NCAA. Because the modification list is not short. And so the question has been, do we need an NCAA code of points that's totally separate from the JO code? And Nicole has this presentation, which I'll let her tell you about, which illustrated her presentation in and of itself, illustrated to me why it's the very reasons that the JO code really is not what's used in NCAA judging. NCAA judges don't take these kind of deductions unless it's, I talked to a bunch of judges and I asked them, do you ever take these kind of deductions that Nicole's about to talk about? And they were like, I mean, rarely, only if it's really, really, really bad. Like it has to be, it's nothing like JO. So with that introduction, could you tell us about your presentation and give us an idea of these 8/10ths that you're going to talk about?
Absolutely. So the presentation is called Dear Coaches, Here's 8/10ths Back, You're Welcome.
Best name ever.
And it's been a really fun one to do because it's something that, you know, coaches know that there's non-value part deductions. Kids kind of know they're supposed to be on toe. But when you apply an actual number value to it, it's really impactful. So I'll go through really quickly kind of the layman's terms on how this works. And basically, when we judge a floor or a beam routine, doesn't matter what level. So this could be compulsory, optional, JO, Devo, whatever we're calling it now, or to be determined, or Excel. It's across the board the same thing. So basically, when they do a beam or floor routine, we can take deductions based on the execution of every single skill that they do. So if they bend their legs, they don't point their feet, there's a leg separation, leg crossing, lack of amplitude, landing deductions, body position, every single time. When that routine is over, those deductions are added up and they're kind of set to the side because now we have to judge what's left, which is the routine, the choreography. And it's called non-value part deductions because this is not worth anything different than this, right? So for people listening, waving your arm.
There were arm waves.
Yes. So choreography is one thing. So while we can take a 0.5 every time they don't point their foot on a skill, we cannot take a 0.5 every time they have a sickled foot or a low releve in their choreography. However, at the end of the routine, we can take up to 0.2 off the total score based on how they use their feet in their choreography as a whole. So if there's not a forced arch, your highest toe, as we like to quote, is not proficient footwork, then there's going to be some sort of up to 0.2 deduction in there. So that's beam and floor. Then we have an overall deduction of how are they using their posture and how are they displaying their flexibility in their choreography. So posture is kind of obvious. We know what to look for. Are they slouching or are they not slouching? Flexibility is very interesting because an athlete could do a straddle jump where their knees smack the side of their head because they're so flexible, and they could do a bridge where they're almost grabbing their heels underneath and still get a flexibility deduction because this only applies to the non-value part portion. This only applies to choreography. So if a flexible kid is consistently showing a shoulder angle when their arms are over their head, maybe because they're just not thinking about pulling back, or an inflexible kid, maybe they hit it pretty well, but then they threw in a needle kick for no reason and it didn't hit 180. That's what I like to call, look what I can't do. And so it doesn't need to be in there. And so if it's not showcasing flexibility or hiding a lack of flexibility, get it out of the routine. So that deduction overall is up to 0.3 off the total score. Again, I can't deduct every time there's a shoulder angle in choreography, but I can note it and then deduct at the end. And then our final one is artistry, and artistry is up to 3/10 off of the total score. If you want me to talk about artistry, we probably need an hour, so I'm going to need some direction here, Jessica.
Okay, so let's talk about the specifics of the footwork first. Let's start with that because we'll get to the artistry slide. So let's look at the footwork slide. If you're or if you not a club gym, this is available on YouTube. So if you guys want to watch it on YouTube too, we have many visual aids as we mentioned. So the first thing I did, okay, literally, I know your presentation. I've watched it at least 4 times this weekend getting ready for this. And the first thing I did was go look at full turns and do a bunch of GIFs of full turns that weren't on releve. And I literally, the whole presentation is about non-value parts, which means it's not gymnastic skills. It can't be dance or acrobatics. Jessica, that is literally what the whole thing is about. But it is so hard to get this concept in your head that you know, prancercising, you can get a deduction if you're not prancercising correctly on beam. So let's look at these 2 examples here, which are examples of 2 NCAA champions on beam, one NCAA champion on beam, one almost NCAA champion on beam. And let's look at the issue of not being in releve, or as KJ Kindler says, are you on your highest toe?
Yep. So what should be happening is the foot should be at the highest releve it possibly could be. So a good way to find that is if you stand in releve, or what you think is your highest releve, and then bend your knees a little bit, then push your highest releve, you'll feel you have more range of motion. Then try to straighten your legs. That's your highest toe. So, you know, everybody's is going to be a little bit different. And you've chosen a sport that judges based on aesthetics. So if you have a low releve, the best option is to just not go in it. But if you do have a high one, we want to see it at its fullest point. We also want to see that they are, every step that they take, they're passing through forced arch and coming back down through forced arch, kind of like you're peeling your foot off and onto the floor. So those are the things that are going to come into play. Just a little trick I like to tell people that don't have a great releve, find a point in your routine to do a plie releve, because everybody's feet look amazing in that position. And then maybe we'll be surprised and happy and forget about it for the rest of the routine.
So in this example, there's 2. I mean, this choreography is cute. I think that Taylor Spears, who's in the first example, only chose gymnasts who are no longer competing for this. I think when she first does stands up, there might be close to an all the way releve, but when you compare it to the examples that I have in the pictures, which is an all the way from the front and the back, it's not there in any of them. It's just a little bit up, but not all the way up. And then the other example we have, Sam Peshek, no.
I was waiting for more.
Her heel touched the beam, but that's about the most releve-ish. And these are gymnasts I also chose who don't have so much tape on their ankles that they couldn't possibly point their toe if they tried. So
yeah, and that could be their highest toe. So then it's a matter of playing the game. If you don't have a releve that looks like that bottom picture down there, then you need to play the game and work around it. Like I said, do a couple plie releves because everybody looks amazing like that, and just do nice footwork without going on toe. Just you gotta hide your weaknesses and showcase your strengths. So yes, I agree. We're not quite seeing the ideal proficient footwork here.
So Spencer, how often do you think this deduction is taken in NCAA?
Oh, in NCAA, literally, it's never happened before. That's my perception of NCAA judging. And even this past weekend, as we're recording this, we had Kathy trying to make that point in as diplomatic as way possible when watching Lexi Rambler and saying everyone who isn't Lexi Rambler needs to be deducted for their feet so that she can then be. That's the only way to appropriately reward someone who's doing it correctly, if you deduct the people who aren't doing it correctly. Because then otherwise, everyone gets a 995 for every routine.
And they do. The other thing we want to see on beam and floor is if the foot is flat, it's turned out. That's it. Unless for some stylized reason it's not, but 9 out of 10 times. Not on skills. Don't tumble with your feet turned out, but rule of thumb, beam and floor choreo, if the foot is flat, it's turned out.
Let's go to the artistry slide. And walk us through some of the principles of
Thank you for
artistry.
these selections, Jessica. Yeah.
First of all, thank you to Spanny Tamsin for her They Can't Dance montage on YouTube, because I got these two that are not demonstrating the artistry we'd like to see from They Can't Dance. And then we have from that. And then, of course, we have Lamencia Hall demonstrating all the things that we want to see in a correct artistic performance. So, Nicole.
Okay. So in our J.O. Devo, what was the other awful name we had? Oh, God.
No, I want it to be called
PTSD.
Diva now. Diva level.
Sure.
This is much better than developmental.
Diva level. So they need to tell a story. They need to have an intention and a purpose to every move that they make. They need to incorporate every part of their body, which, believe it or not, includes the eyeballs. That is a part of the body. In order to tell that story, it needs to be purposeful. So what I like to get athletes to understand is that you do not have to go out there and be a ballerina. That doesn't equal artistry. If you can and you are and you do it well, fantastic. But I think there's a misconception that ballet equals artistry, that grace equals artistry. It is a type of artistry, but is not the only thing. So the other one that we kind of miss sometimes, we have parents that submit to my gym judge and they'll submit a floor routine and go, well, I know she got some tense off because she didn't smile. I'm like, that's not a deduction. If the routine calls for it, if the athlete is that kid that is smiley and bubbly, then that's going to work. But when they paint a smile on their face and stare at us, it's a little creepy if it's not authentic. So what we want to see, and here's the other thing I get a lot is, well, what kind of routines do judges like? We like good routines. I'm not going to tell you what style I like because it doesn't matter. My job is to recognize it done well. So a nice analogy is a food critic. If you're a food critic, you are literally judging people's work, just like we do in gymnastics. Now, you may not quite have an affinity for seafood, but if you're going to go to a seafood restaurant, you're going to judge a salmon dish, you better recognize if it's done well, even if you can't stand it. And that's kind of the same thing here. Like I have had routines where I've took my smallest or no artistry deductions for, and it's the style that I like the least. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because, again, it doesn't matter. So they've got to figure out who they are, what speaks to them, what's comfortable for them, and then just crank it up to 1,000.
Crank it up to 1,000 is what we like, which is Lamencia is doing here.
Oh, yeah.
Spencer, could you describe the maybe the two gifts that we have here that are not demonstrating the kind of artistry we want? And then Nicole, you could maybe speak to the deductions, the up to 3/10, you guys, 3/10. That's supposed to be
it is
taken
hard
in
to
NCAA.
show a lack of artistry in a single GIF because it is a holistic, and what's one of my questions for Nicole is, so like the things we make fun of in like US elite floor routine sometimes, like getting into a corner and then like flicking your wrist. Right. That in itself is that like something where as a level 10 judge, you're going to put pen to paper right there and be like, honey, or whatever? Or is it like, it's at the end, like, okay, there was one weird corner where it was kind of lame, but right. Overall there was, a story or a theme or something. So I'm going to be, I'm not deducting for specific actions, or right. Are you?
No, we can't deduct for specific actions, but we can make a note of it, because if that specific action happens at the beginning of the routine and then it happens again later and I look down, I'm like, oh, there was a few times there that it wasn't quite happening for me. Then I can start to decide if I'm applying or not.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there are athletes out there that do it. Like it can be done. There is a level 6 routine that I saw a couple years ago at state championships, and I cried. I teared up because I just could not believe the artistry in this kid. It was amazing. And so people go like, oh, it's just a level 6 routine. No, they can do it. It can be done. So we have to take the deductions when it's not done so that they have something to strive for. So, one little thing here and there. Yeah, I mean, if it can be done better, then we need to make sure that we're, applying deductions appropriately.
So elite dead eyes is a deduction. This is what I wanted to get across with these. Yes. Yeah. You have to perform with your face. Your emotions have to be visible through your face. And it can't just be like fake the funk. At least you're trying, though. If it's a fake creepy smile, at least you're trying, which is the number one thing on your artistry list was try, exclamation point, all caps.
You did watch it.
I did several times.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, with the elite thing, and not to say that that's every single elite out there by any means, but there is, in the experience that I've had working with elite athletes, is that number one, this is very interesting. They're so freaking strong. I know that you know this, that it is very difficult for an athlete that is that strong to have mobility in their rib cage. So if you think about it, that's why we get a lot of movements that are just arms, because they can't extend through here to get the fluidity. They're just too strong. It's almost like they're restricted a little bit. Yeah, it's very interesting. So we have to do some workarounds. But besides that, as far as the face, I mean, I think that what happens with athletes in general is that coaches wait until they're at the higher level to then start trying to enforce and expect artistry. So if you think about it, these kids in general are getting to level 8 or 7 or whatever, maybe around between like 10 and 13 years old on average, right? 10 and 13-year-old girls are the last people to be asked to go put themselves out there and be vulnerable.
So true.
Their self-consciousness is there. They're looking at themselves. So when you start notice, they're looking in the mirror a little bit at practice, and they're worried about who am I, where do I fit in? And now you're going, okay, get out there and be artistic. You got to get them when they're little and they don't care. You got to get them when, acting like a tree blowing in the wind and a tiger and all that stuff it's fun and they don't care. Then it becomes the norm, and then you can start to hone that into real beauty later on. But when they're stuck behind that, like, I don't want to look stupid thing, it's too late. It's not going to happen. I did want to make one more point, if that's okay.
Please.
Yes.
About applying this. Looking at these NCAA routines, it just reminds me about how we have, like, for level 6 and 7 and Excel, there's no composition deductions, right? So when you get to state championships or, even regionals, everybody's good. Everybody has straight legs and pointed toes and sticks their landings, much like these high caliber NCAA routines. So when they're that good, that's when we really truly rely on those 8/10 and non-value part deductions. So there's much of a parallel there with the caliber of gymnastics that these guys are doing, and it really is the only way to separate. So I hope NCAA can veer away from, audience is going to leave if they don't get a 10 and start giving them something to strive for.
Oh, man. Let's hope. Nicole, I want to thank you so much for this incredibly first of all, for your wonderful presentation that I now have memorized, and for helping us illustrate the point of the JO code and what's actually done with NCAA are not the same thing. You can find Nicole at My Gym Judge or Precision Choreography. And thank you so much for being here, Nicole.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me. I feel like I'm that person on Saturday Night Live. I'm like, I've been watching the show all this time and now I'm here. I kind of feel like that. So thank you for having me.
And now it's time for the final. Are you ready for your final exam? It's really for both of us. Okay, these are all questions from Twitter. Okay. Is there a video review process in NCAA like there is for Elite?
It does exist.
You have to videotape it yourself. That's the thing. Like, you have to have the video. So you can do it, but it's not like the NCAA is there keeping track, taking a video of everything. You have to have some, someone not in the lineup stand there with an iPad and record it for you. Why are there so many volunteer coaches?
Because teams are limited to a maximum of 3 paid coaches.
Paid coaches.
And then they want more. And those people can't be paid. So they're like, can't be paid. So they're like, you should coach the club team and summer camps and we'll pay you to do that. And then you do the choreography and you're a volunteer coach.
Right. The choreographer thing is the thing that makes me like so angry. Like, because lots of coaches think that they're also choreographers and they're just terrible. Some are great. Most of them are terrible and they're just doing regurgitating stuff that they were taught. So you get the same old boring nonsense routines. So yeah, there needs to be you need to have 3 coaches and a choreographer is how it should actually work, because then you wouldn't end up like situations like what's alleged to have happened in Nebraska. Or all this underhanded, like, you work the summer camp and that's what the money that you'll get. Okay. Why is judging so bad?
I mean, how much time do we have? We're at the end of the episode.
Okay. What I will say about
everyone's terrible at everything. And they're all friends with each other, and they're all friends with all the coaches, or their daughter was on a team and then they're judging, and it's all corrupt and terrible. And they want to give everyone a 10 because of marketing, so that everyone has to get a 9.95 so they can be close to a 10 if they don't have any balance checks. And I hate it. That's my answer.
There is a rule specifically that you can't be associated with a team for like 5 years or something. And then after 5 years, you can coach them again or judge them again.
But you can judge other teams that have a rivalry with that team you feel very strongly about.
Right. I would say the problem stems from the fact that there are unwritten rules in judging in NCAA. So all the good NCAA judges who get elevated up to things, they understand the unwritten rules and they stick to those unwritten rules. And the unwritten rules are like, you don't take all of those deductions that you'd take in JO, because then the scores are going to be, low 9s. And for marketing purposes, everyone wants high scores. One judge did make a very good point. He told me that you have to remember that the more little deductions that we take like this, like those 8/10 that Nicole Langevin talked about, the more of those non-value part deductions we take, the less value a fall has. Which is very true.
It's true.
It's very true.
I do not have a problem with increasing how much a fall is worth in NCAA.
Ooh.
Yeah, if that's your argument, okay, make a fall 8/10. Next argument.
I think that they just need to codify the rules. Like,
yes,
if it was
that is the actual real answer.
That's
rather
no
than
problem.
Spencer's ranty frustration about.
Yeah. Okay. How is the schedule decided?
A secret cabal makes the schedule. This year, it's been a little funky. Teams, especially in the large conferences, will have specific conference requirements for how many meets they have to have against each other in their general geographical area. Other than that, coaches, make their own schedules. There are a lot of things that decide that, like the venue options you have at your school. And they're like, oh, sweetie, basketball needs that arena every weekend. You don't get to have any home meets, or we're not paying for that. So, yeah.
Or the TV schedules also play into it.
The TV schedules have a lot to say about the Pac-12 and the SEC and when their meets are going to be.
And it's also like, oh, it's the first meet of the season. We want to make sure we win. Oh, it's senior night. We want to make sure all of the seniors are already be stressed out. So we're going to make sure we win that one. So, yeah.
There's a lot of considerations that go into it. Now there are more like decisions from above, because you have networks like the SEC network and the Pac-12. So there are more like, there's more dictating what teams can do with their schedules than there used to be.
Yeah. Okay. Ask me some.
How much are the deductions in NCAA?
They are different than elite in that
there's none.
You can only take a 0.5 or a 1/10. There's no 1/4 So
well, ideally, you could also take more than a 1/10. People just don't.
Well, yes, you can. Yes. Like you can take up to 3/10, like for, not being in releve and having sickled feet and not walking and prancercising in turned out. Like there are deductions like that. But in terms of like there's no 1/4, which is the biggest thing that I have a problem with, because I know judges will like do a little mark of like 1/4 and then at the end of the routine take that off, which I think is fine. Like if it adds up to that, that's another thing I just feel like should be codified, because there are things where like it's a wobble. I saw it. It's not such a big wobble that I want to take a whole 1/10 or a 0.5. But
if it's, that example hurts my soul, because if it's a wobble, that's a thing. But if it's a wobble, it's a wobble, it's a wobble.
Oh, it's not.
Jessica, there are different sizes, but like if you
no, Spencer,
if you have shown a lack of sureness in your landing, that needs to be deducted every single time.
Yes, at a quarter tenth, as opposed to like bending at the hips, waving an arm, like, moving sideways, but you actually just to balance yourself, but you actually haven't wobbled. You've just adjusted yourself while you continue your dance. So I noticed that.
That's what half tenth is for. That's what it should.
I feel like should be a quarter tenth. All right. So this is the problem.
This is why the high scores turn everyone crazy, because it makes you think that a half tenth is a large deduction. And you can't go so far as to take a half tenth, when in actuality, a half tenth is a very small deduction.
Anyway, this is why we
need a quarter tenth if
I love a quarter tenth.
But if everyone took more deductions, then a half tenth wouldn't seem so significant, and you wouldn't have to create a smaller deduction than the half tenth.
All right, ask me the next one. Moving on, Spencer.
It's almost like we're giving a good example of why scoring is such a disaster. Yes. Do judges have their performances evaluated?
They do. Women's is totally different than men's. The men's system is better. The women, the coaches fill out a survey at the end of the meet. Yeah. That's what happens. It's nothing like the FIG elite system, which is an actual review process and there are consequences. It is nothing like that. It's like, oh, your friends won't invite you back, basically, is what happens.
Yeah. Dear coaches, write a review of this person you know is going to judge 3 more of your meets this season. Write down how much you hate this person who you have to work with as your job.
Yeah, it's a great system. You can see why it totally works.
Great. It's working really well.
Yeah.
Jessica, what is a college salute?
Thank you for asking. Mm-hmm. A college salute is when you haven't stuck it, but you are going to pretend you stuck it by doing the wildest, most ridiculous, archified, crazy salute. Your hair might touch your butt is how far you're arching yourself to hide the fact that you didn't stick, but you are going to pretend by doing a crazy salute and celebrating like you just won the lottery.
Or you actually have stuck and you're so excited and everyone does such crazy salutes and it's like a thing that we do that you salute yourself out of a stick, which happens, and Kennedy Baker has confirmed it because I asked her and she was like, yes, I have definitely done that. I've definitely had a real stick on my double front on bars, and then I was like, I'm going to salute excitedly, and then I stepped and got deducted for it.
Or you're so excited that you run off the mat and sprain your ankle, which we have also seen happen very specifically. Greatest moment of my life. Or you're just a
gymnast, so you trip every minute and sprain your ankle on mats.
This is true.
Jessica, what's the difference between all these conferences?
TV rights. Money. Okay, so conferences, some of them started off as like they all had the same rules and they were hoity-toity. Like the Ivy League is like, we only give academic scholarships. We're the original, fancy schools. If you want to be president, you have to go here. They don't give athletic scholarships. So there's some conferences like that, like the Ivy League. Some are geographical, but then some have been just invented in order to add schools. So like the Pac-12 was basically, we want to add Utah to all of these schools. So we're going to invent a TV network and get all of this investment. But they don't mean a lot, honestly, because you can move between them. Like West Virginia has moved between where they used to. Now they've like basically upped themselves and they're in the Oklahoma conference when they used to be in a different conference. So
yes. Back in the day, it used to be geographic based for like minimizing the travel that teams will have to do by competing mostly against teams that are close to them. And now that just like is meaningless.
Yeah. Okay.
Do teams devote time during practice to learn each other's choreography?
This is the best question we got. So no, it's just one of those things, but I can see how you would think that.
You can't help it.
You can't help it. If you see someone's routine like 7,000 times over the course of 3 months, you can't help but learn it. Like it's just one of those things and it's fun. if you're a gymnast, hopefully you like to dance because dance is like the foundation of the sport. So it's one of those fun things to do, but they don't actually dedicate time. Most of the good teams dedicate time for dance, but not to learn each other's choreography.
But then the school stream commentator every single meet has to be like, oh, wow, isn't it amazing that they do each other's choreography on the sidelines? It's literally, that doesn't make your team special. It's literally every team.
Oh my God.
Literally every team does this.
And we can see them do it. So shut up. You didn't need to tell us about it. Oh my God.
Jessica, why do they have different leotards every week?
Money. You just have so much money. You have to do something with it. They don't need a new Leo every week. You could wear the same Leo for the entire. At the most, you need 2 Leos. Except no, for regionals, you would need 3 unless you have a laundry service. Because if you compete and then you have the playoff thing, or is it only 2 days?
If you're in the playoff, in the playoff, you would compete 3. But you also need your practice Leos,
right? So
I mean,
like competition Leos, right? Which you also don't need. Like we used to warm up in our. Anyway,
but then you don't get to do a costume change.
No, so basically
and reveal, and then the coach should just do costume changes too,
right?
If they're like in athletic garb during warm-ups, and
so
then
they can actually like spot and be coaches, and then they switch into heels.
They go and do switch to their Oscar dresses for the competition. That's part of the sport,
so that they can spot and ruin the mats and potentially be a hazard in their heels. So there's no reason. It's just a fashion thing, and it's a sponsor thing, and it's fun. I have to say, like having a new, something new to wear. Because what if the Leo was your only Leo was so ugly and you had to wear it every freaking week?
Really old. Like how many team members have been in this Leo over the years?
God, which is another reason to wear underwear with your leotard, you guys. How many crotches have been in that thing? So
how many butts have fallen out of that thing? All of them. All the butts.
Last one.
What's a walk-on versus a red shirt?
A walk-on is someone who does not have a scholarship. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that you literally just showed up at school and were like, there's a gymnastics.
You definitely didn't just show up at school.
No, you were recruited. Or occasionally there have been things where there are so many injuries on a team that a coach will go to like the intra college club team at the school and be like, can anybody do a 10.0 rated vault? Would you like to be on our gymnastics team? That does happen, but it means like you've been recruited and you can, you can walk on and not be paid.
We don't have enough scholarship spots for you, but it's such an honor to be at our school that you should really want to go here and pay for it yourself. And you have to get in academically, wink, but we're going to have a meeting with the admissions department to make sure you get in. So that's not a problem. But just like, the prestige of our team is so important that you should pay to go here yourself instead of going to a weaker team that's not going to win a national championship, but you could get your education paid for.
Yeah. So there's that. And it is a huge advantage to be on a sports team because you get to register for classes first, even if you're in those, manager roles and stuff. So it is a giant advantage over the people that are the regular students who might be paying their own way. You get that advantage. So it's worth it for a lot of people, even if they're paying, because they could like graduate in 4 years instead of having to go 5 years. So they can't get into their classes. Oh, okay. Red shirt. A red shirt means that you only have 4 years of eligibility. You're only allowed to compete for 4 years. But let's say you get hurt 1 year. That's a red shirt year. It means that if you've only competed, a short number of meets.
Yeah, there's a percentage, like if you can compete in like 3 at the beginning of the season, but if you competed too late into the season or too many meets, you won't be eligible to get a red shirt theoretically.
And some people don't want to give up that year. They want to make sure they have a whole year where there's like, some people are totally shocked that the year that Maggie Nichols didn't compete basically the whole season. And then like the last 2 meets of the season, she competed. So she could have gotten an extra year of eligibility, but instead she competed probably because she wanted that to go for that 4 in a row NCAA champion.
Also, like, I would like to win a national championship and compete because I'm a gymnast. And,
right.
Yeah. Why is it called red shirt, Jessica? Because that is a very confusing term.
I think that this actually comes from, so basically it designates a year that you were injured, and so it doesn't count against your eligibility. So if someone says like you're a redshirt senior, it means that this is actually your 5th or 6th year, but you were hurt 2 years. What I think, I don't know the origins, but my guess is it comes from the ball sports when they put like a red thing on you that tells you like you're not supposed to be touched that practice, but I don't actually know. That's a great question. Maybe our listeners can respond to that.
Maybe our fact checker.
Yeah, who's done ball sports. No,
yeah, I believe it's like you had to wear a red thing to indicate that you were not part of the full number of people you had on the eligible people on the team.
Like that little vest that's like made out of plastic that goes over you with like flaps on the side. Whatever that's called in ball sports. Nobody does that in gymnastics. For classy. All right, you guys. So it originated from the red shirts worn in practice. We are amazing.
There you go. Nailed it.
My God, we're incredible. It should be Red Leo. They're a Red Leo or something. No, that doesn't sound good.
Never mind.
Now all I can think about is period parties. Okay, you guys. I made it through the whole episode without talking about period parties, Spencer. Okay. Very good. I want to thank Nicole Langevin for being here and joining us and helping me make the argument, which had nothing to do with this, her feelings at all, but helping make the argument of why we need an NCAA code of points. Thank you to all of the judges that answered questions this week from us. Thank you to all of our listeners who gave us questions to create the wonderful quizzes that we put in this episode. If you liked what we did here, remember we have another episode of Gym Nerd School 101, which is about elite, and that's going to be an ongoing series. So we're going to get into more of that as we get closer to the Olympics. We are here. If this is your first time listening, because you found us in Gym Nerd School, we do this every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, because we are not four-year fans. We are all the time gymnastics podcasters, and we've been here for 8 years. So you can find everything you need to know about us at GymCastic.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're a Club Gym Nerd member, we'll see you on Friday for the special Q&A podcast that we do every single Friday just for our Club Gym Nerd members to thank them for being members. You can rate or review us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. You can find me at O to the Burn on the social. Spencer's the BB Situation on Twitter only. And if you're interested in more specifics about the code of points, you can go to thebalancebeamsituation.com, and Spencer has full breakdowns of everything you want to know about the NCAA code of points and how that works.
Do a Google search for WTF is college gymnastics scoring, because that's what I felt like is the crux of the question.
We are GymCastic on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find Nicole Langevin at My Gym Judge or Precision Choreography. And until next week, please remember to take off on gay, split on rights.